For a while, I never really thought someone would top Irma from Jujutsu no Roken as the most violent protagonist for a justifiable reason. Well, the time has come. Fukishuku no Kigana Sayo Yusha wa nah. The hero who seeks revenge shall exterminate with darkness. The strongest brave hero who craves for revenge extinguishes with the power of darkness is by far one of the wildest mangas I've ever read. Being one of my favorite categories in manga, I had to give it a read. Instead of reading this long title, I'm just gonna call it the hero who seeks revenge. So the main character is Raul Evans, a hero that was a good guy that would be portrayed by all these monsters and would be hit with a game over, but before he died, he would vow revenge. While in kayfabe heaven, he would convince this god to send him back so he can get his revenge. And thus Raw's revenge would begin, starting with the queen he once fought for, Victoria. You see, Victoria is meant to be hated. From the very first time you see her, you immediately want her to be erased off the panel. She's someone who is very full of herself and abuses everyone whenever she wants for no reason. She sees everyone as a tool for her own gain and steps on anyone who gets in her way. So basically, she's a full-blown psychopath. Her story with Ra only proves this point. The things she did to this man was downright evil. So for starters, she captured him by outright slaughtering a village. She even gave him orders to murk the women and the children. Don't worry, it gets worse. So Ra had a sister, oh boy, that was pregnant. Victoria knew this and would take out his sister by having the guard stab her multiple times in the stomach, making sure her and the baby wouldn't survive. And then showing Raw his sister, and she smiled about it. I'm an advocate for revenge, I'm sorry. And you're probably wondering why she did all these things? Well, we'll talk about that a little later. With all this playing in his head, it was time for her to atone for her sins. But then he realized, right before sending her to hell, why not just torture her, leave her for last, and then come back and finish her? He starts off by hitting her so hard in the stomach that she could never have kids, because destroying her guards, having the guy she was supposed to marry piss himself, almost going Griffith on her while doing this in front of the entire kingdom wasn't enough. So now his hunt for revenge would continue. His revenge would consist of about 4 people so far, but the first one we're going to start with is General Brown. This old head and his family was outright insane. His wife and 2 kids seem to be normal at first until you see that the food they eat is human flavored. The hero's real hatred for the general would be that he was responsible for the destruction of his hometown village, deleting everyone, setting everyone on fire, and erasing Rao's mom in the worst way possible, and later admitting to eating her. To add insult to injury, he took Raw in and lied to him about what happened, saying that demons destroyed his village. Raw would first deal with a lot of the general's cooks and force them to dig their own graves. His reason for this is pretty clear. The general shows up and is pissed like anyone would. Raw would show him that there's more to this tree, as he would show the general his wife hanging from the tree by her. Yep, exactly what you think it is. The 2 fight and the general gets his ass handed to him. Before catching part 2 of his L, he would get his hands chopped off, and Raw tells him it's time to eat. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, it's exactly what you think is about to happen. Raw forces the general and his kids to eat his wife, and then absolutely torture him psychologically. He finally finishes him off, and the children. After one man is down, the next person on his hit list would be Dr. Renee, another person that should be buried underneath a prison. She was a mad scientist that would experiment on humans to see how much of their body parts they could lose before dying. She even keeps their body parts as trophies like a full-blown lunatic. Her and the other lackeys were trying to turn soldiers into immortals against their own will. The execution Raw had for her was nothing short of the word verbose. So Raw picks off all 231 scientists in the facility by turning them into monsters. The same monsters they were creating. We then learned that Raw had been hearing what they've been talking about the entire time. Before the mad scientist would find out, she was already plotting to kill the 3 guys so she could escape. However, Lucas will call her out on it. Then she tries to lie, and say she only poisoned 2 of the cups for the other guys, but then it would be revealed that Raw was Lucas the entire time. Now that all her cards have been played, she starts gloating that she's won because the drink she spiked was supposed to turn the 2 guys into monsters, but to her those guys were long gone even before they even got to the room. Raw was using his magic to make it look like they were alive, so now with her dreams of escaping and ego shattered, Raw was ready to break her spirit. He binds her and takes her to all the sciences he slaughtered. Raw wanted her to see his masterpiece before the grand finale. He drags her down to the basement, and at this point, Dr. Renee was broken with all the chaos that was going on, which is funny because Raw calls her out on her hypocrisy. She was the one behind the human plan. You erased countless people, split kids down the middle, put a monkey brain inside of a child's head, and hold on to their body parts as trophies, but now all of a sudden the taste of her own medicine is too much for her? Our hero even forces her to see all the things she did to really drive home his point. Her last ditch attempt was to blame the villagers for not helping them, as once monsters drink water they turn back to human. This info didn't change Raw's mind now, because he was still going to deal with them too. Raw makes her drink as much poison as possible, leaving her a slow and painful death. This was only the beginning, as he gives her a chance to create an antidote to save herself, but the catch is she'll never leave because this is a never-ending experiment. She drinks up to 40 plus poison potions. She would inevitably pass away after 17 ruthless hours of this. Yeah, his get back for her was premeditated and kinda justified. Out of all the 3 people Raw has walked down on, 2 was put in the blender while leaving 1 for later. But before that, he had an entire village to desecrate. The best way I can describe them and still keep my channel is everyone Raw has terrorized, but just multiply that times 3. These monsters are the worst of the worst. The second thing we see them do is literally trick young girls into thinking their village was safe, then robbing them of everything they had. Everything. Even shaving their hair to sell it as a wig. Then would get rid of them and bury them. Raw would show up mimicking a young girl. He would use his magic to force the villagers on a field trip they'll never forget. He makes the group walk all day in the scorching sun and hot sand until they made it to another village. And when they got to the village, look how excited they were. Only for them to find out that they were walking in a circle back to their village. Raw even talking to them about drinking water in front of them, knowing they pretty much are fiending for water. His diabolical plan was to make them walk over and over, so every time they saw the village, it would restart the journey. What Raw does next was downright evil but clever at the same time. To shatter the already broken spirit of the villagers, he would erase the kids. Now, how was this clever, you may ask? He didn't actually unalive them. This was simply an illusion trick to hurt their feelings. The villagers finally make it to the village. Everyone is all smiles and filled with hope. And then there's me, remembering that this manga is called Revenge and not Forgiveness. Also, the villagers still never got any water, so they immediately rushed to the gate and asked for water. Raw knew this village was filled with nice people that would help them if they didn't know their secrets. Raw would mimic one of the villagers and tell them all the horrific things they did. The girl from earlier was from this village. He even gives them a ribbon of one of the daughters to solidify their fate. The villagers would finally get what was coming to them after all the things they did. All of them were finished, except one, the leader of the village. With his people gone and him downright desperate and thirsty, he pleads with Raw for water. Raw gives him a taste of his own medicine by asking the villager for money, the same way the villagers and this old man did Raw's night. So with him being done and dusted, that leaves a village full of kids with no parents. So what does Raw do? He would send them to a military camp to be soldiers. So Raw has taken out everyone that has ever wronged him, his friends and families, in the same manner as they wronged him. He dealt with the general and his family. He strung his wife up by a tree the same way his mom went out. He made the scientists do a test on herself for hours like a guinea pig, just like how she did his knights. He broke the villagers down so much to the point to the last man begged for water. He begged just like how his knights begged before they went out. With this recurring theme, we can pretty much guess what he's finna do to Victoria. And with that, I'm probably just gonna leave it how it is right now. Just let me know in the comments if you want to see a part 2, and yeah, I'm out.